Well, who's excited to be at Family Church on Vision Sunday? Who did I hear Kyle right? He said it's a good one, as opposed to a not a good one, right? All right. I just didn't know how to take that at first, right? So, welcome to Vision Sunday. People are like, well, what is Vision Sunday? Vision Sunday is when we set aside some time to talk about who we are, where we're going, but more importantly, how we're going to get there. Proverbs 29:18, Solomon says this. He says, if people can't see what God is doing, if there's not clarity in your life about what God is doing in your life, they stumble all over themselves, but when they attend to what he reveals, in other words, when you begin to see the place of God in your life and what he wants to do in your life, it says they are most blessed. If people can't see what God is doing, they stumble all over themselves, but when they attend to what he reveals, they are most blessed. See, we don't want you stumbling your way through life. We want you to live a blessed life, a happy life, a fulfilled life, and any takers on that? Anyone want to live a blessed, fulfilled, happy life? That's what we want for you. We want the life that God has for you because we, talking about the church corporately, are better at pursuing our vision as a church when you individually pursue your vision that God's given you. Because God not only has a vision for us as a church, he has a vision for you individually as well. People sometimes get confused about the difference between vision and mission, and I get that because I do too sometimes, but simply defined, vision's where we're going, mission's how we're going to get there. Vision's where we're going, mission's how we're going to get there. So for us, for Family Church, our vision is that all people would take their next step of faith. Because everyone, no matter where they're at, even people that don't know God, that's their next step, is to come to know God. So that's our vision, that all people would take their next step toward Jesus. And the way that we do this at Family Church is through our mission. And our mission is to be the easiest place for people to experience the love and forgiveness of Jesus Christ. See, we want to be a place where unchurched or de-churched people, especially people that may be hurt by church in the past at some point in time, we want to create an environment where they might consider giving God another chance or giving God a first chance. And this is why we do what we do here on Sunday mornings. Now, as far as how this applies to you individually, I think the Apostle Paul best explains this in his letter to the church at Ephesus. It's found in Ephesians chapter 5, verses 15 to 17. I'm going to read it to you. He says, so be careful how you live. Don't live like fools, but like those who are wise. Make the most of every opportunity. I'm going to come back to that word. Make the most of every opportunity in these evil days. How many of you know we're living in evil days? Don't act thoughtlessly, but understand what the Lord wants you to do. So the apostle here warns us against living foolishly and encourages us to live wisely. But notice how he defines wise living here. By making the most of our opportunities while living in this evil world. And the word that Paul used there for opportunity is an interesting word. The Greek language actually has two words that they use for our English word time. The first word that the Greeks had was chronos, or the English transliteration would be chronos, chronos, from which we get our English word chronology or chronological. And that refers to sequential time. It's kind of like the time when you go to work every day. You go to work from this time to this time. You go to school from this time to this time. That's chronos, that's chronological time. But they had another word for time that was kairos, K-A-I-R-O-S. And this refers to kind of an undetermined amount of time. And it was used to describe a period of time when something special happens. Put it in the context of what Paul's saying here. And basically what he's saying, he says, look, God looks down on this messed up evil world and says, because the days are so evil, I'm going to create a kairos moment, a special moment in time, a window of opportunity for my church to do what I've called it to do. And I'm telling you, dear ones, Family Church is in a kairos moment now and have been. We have been for the last 3 years. We are in a kairos moment. God needs us to be a church in motion, a church that will step up and seize that kairos moment. And the way that we do that here at Family Church is through what we call our growth track. And our growth track consists of 4 words, 4 verbs, 4 action words. And the first one is follow. Follow. And this is where you know God, come to know God. The way that we get to know God is by following him. as when Jesus said, follow me. See, life change happens once you begin to follow him, not just believing in him. The Bible says the devil believes in God, and he ain't going to heaven, right? So it's not just believing that he exists. It's when you start following him. That's when the life change comes. Jesus said, believe in me twice. He said, follow me over 22 times. I want to share a young man that's going to be getting baptized here in a little bit, Derek Grettencord. I sat down with Derek this past week and listened to some of his story. I didn't know Derek before he started coming to church, but I had talked to some people that informed me that there was a time Derek was in a pretty dark place. I'm not going to share his whole story because that's his story to tell, and I've encouraged him to tell it, and he's going to sometime soon. But as he was sharing his journey with me, how he ended up here at Family Church, I was struck by how similar it was to many parts of my journey. He said he grew up in the church. Of course, he grew up Catholic. I didn't grow up Catholic, but I grew up Southern Baptist. But it was kind of the same thing. You know, you kind of had this connection with church, but over time, you know, you just kind of become different things, cause you to become disenchanted with it. For him, he said there came a point where, I mean, there were other things involved as well, but he said the idea of confessing your sin to another guy and all this stuff, he said it just kind of began to become less relevant to him. And he said by the time he was 30, what little connection he had with God and the church was gone by the time he was 30. He ended up getting married. Marriage only lasted 6 years, long enough to have 2 sons. Along the way, Derek got caught up in some life-controlling issues. He became an addict. Eventually lost his marriage and his sons. Spent the next decade of his life bouncing back and forth between OxyContin and meth. You know, last week I talked about how Mike Holtwick was able to compensate for his alcoholism by becoming a highly functional alcoholic. Derek became a high, pardon the pun, functioning drug addict. That's how he was able to keep his job during that dark time of his life. But because he was living in a fog at the time, what money he wasn't spending on meth and pills, he was spending at the casinos. He said, Curtis, he said, for 10 years, every weekend, I was at the casinos. And he said, you know, looking back on it, now that he can see clearly and his mind's not in the fog anymore, he said, man, I can't believe how reckless that my life had become. And the thing is, all along, he knew it wasn't right. But see, that's the thing about addicts. Usually they know that, you know, they're not in a good place, but they don't have the power to change. They just don't have the power to change. They don't know how to climb out of that hole. Derek's "Do you want to be well?" question came when Shelton Brydup invited him to Family Church one time. Derek took him up on his invitation, and since coming to Family Church, Derek has not only committed his life to the Lord, he said his mind is clearer. He's happier than he's been in 15 years. 15 years. But as he was sharing his story with me, every time he would mention his sons, there was always a pause. A painful pause caused by the regret of not being there for his sons during that time when sons really need their fathers to be around. I told him, I said, you know, Derek, you may not be able to get back those lost years, but you know what? You can start fresh. You can start fresh. Because we serve a God of second chances and third chances. In fact, you're sitting next to people that have had a second, a third, a fourth, 70 times 7. And now he said that he can't believe how much his life has changed. He says he's spending more time with his sons and a new grandson. Of course, his eyes lit up when he was talking about his grandson, right? Following God won't only make your life better, it'll make you better at life. At Family Church, we're all about changed lives. And Kyle stole my thunder because I was going to share Hunter's story. But I thought it was cool because how many times have you heard me say, give me a year of your life? Give us a year of your life. I mean, don't just come, but I mean, jump in. You know, Hunter's serving and ABL, you know, Shelly helps, she serves too. Give us a year of your life. And at the end of that year, and this is our guarantee, if your life isn't better, you can have your old stinking life back. No questions asked. But really, give us a year of your life. Get plugged in, and I guarantee you your life will be better, and you'll be better at life. Right after the 11 o'clock service, Derek and 6 other folks are going to go public with their faith by being water baptized. In fact, Derek told me before service, he said, man, I was so excited. I couldn't even sleep last night just thinking about getting water baptized. I just thought that was so cool. And you know, if you've been coming to Family Church for very long, you know that water baptisms, we party. I mean, it's a good time. The angels in heaven party when someone comes to faith. We party down here when they go public with that faith. Because that's what God would want us to do. And thinking about our water baptism service, I was struck by the wide range, the spectrum of people that we're going to be baptizing today. At one end of the spectrum, you have sweet, innocent, cuter than a bug's ear, 7-year-old Rylan, who helps her mom out on the farm. Right? And at the other end of the spectrum, we have Stoney. And if you don't know who Stoney is, that just shows you're not from Wellsville. Let me put it this way. I think Scotty Hutchison is going to have to relinquish his title as Family Church's most notorious sinner. I told Sue yesterday, in 35 years of ministry in this town, there has never been more buzz about someone getting water baptized than this past week. I've been getting texts, calls. Stoney? Did I hear right? Stoney's getting baptized? Yes, he is. Yes, he is. And I think it's great. And Stoney has a story too, and I'm going to encourage him to share it at some time with you guys as well. Follow. Change comes when we follow. The second action word is connect. Connect. This is where you find freedom. It is a fact that the more connected you are to the body of Christ, the better off your life's going to be. Solomon, the wisest man who ever lived, tells us in Ecclesiastes 4, a person standing alone can be attacked and defeated, but two can stand back to back and conquer, but a threefold cord is even stronger and is not easily broken. Literal translation, we're better together. We are better together. You see, we've all seen those National Geographic, clips of, over in Africa, where you have 4 or 5 or 6 hyenas, trying to get dinner, and they're no match for a herd of 100 wildebeest. So what do? They get one isolated. They'll look for the sickly one, the weak one, the one that doesn't realize that the rest of the herd's moved away. So and all of a sudden it finds itself alone. I'm telling you, folks, that's how the devil operates. You get yourself in that position, he's going to pick you off. That's just how it is. You say, Pastor, don't be so negative. Can't you be positive? Yes, I can. I'm positive you're going to get picked off if you don't get plugged in, because that's how the enemy works. The devil operates the same way. That's why we encourage you to get plugged into one of our growth groups. Growth groups play a huge role in this step of finding freedom. And we offer growth groups in the fall and the spring because, look, you need to know this. Most of your spiritual growth doesn't come on Sunday mornings. As amazing as the sermons are, I'm going to try that again. I'm going to set you up. As amazing as the sermons are, most of your spiritual growth is going to come in a growth group. I'm just telling you that. That's how. Why? Because circles are better than rows when it comes to growing in our walk with Christ. So we encourage everyone to get plugged into a growth group. And I'm excited to tell you that we have this spring, we had over 176 people involved in one of our growth groups. But at the same time, I'm a little sad because of the size of our church. That should be double. We should have a whole lot more people involved in our growth groups. So connect. If we're going to be the generation that recognizes this kairos, this special moment, this window of opportunity that God has put before us, it begins by accepting Jesus' invitation to follow me, followed by getting connected to a network of spiritual support and accountability. Then the third thing I'm encouraging you to do is discover your purpose. Discover why in the world you're here in the first place. The psalmist in Psalm 139 says this: you made all the delicate inner parts of my body and knit me together in my mother's womb. Thank you for making me so wonderfully complex. Your workmanship is marvelous. How well I know it. You watched me as I was being formed in utter seclusion, as I was woven together in the dark of the womb. While you were still in your mama's womb, God was working on you. That's what he's saying there. God was working. That's how intentional you are. Verse 16, you saw me before I was born. Every day of my life was recorded in your book. In your book. Look at that. In your book. Every moment was laid out. Think about it. All the days laid out for you are in a book in God's library. You weren't an accident. You were intentionally woven together by your Creator. Mark Twain said this. He said, the two most important days of your life are the day you were born and the day you find out why. You, me, we were all born to make a difference. Follow, connect, discover. And then the fourth verb is this, serve. Serve, make a difference. See, this is the verb that brings the most joy. When you do something beyond yourself, when you live for something and for something beyond yourself, when you make a difference in someone else's life, that's when you really begin to experience that fulfillment that Jesus talked about, that abundant life. Your life will only be as successful as the cause you attach to it. There's such a sense of fulfillment and joy when you know that you made a difference in someone else's life. And if you don't believe me, go ask the people that serve on some of our dream teams. They'll tell you, man, this is the best thing that ever happened to me. I shared last week, Monty, who bought and sold businesses, served on prestigious positions on councils and board positions up in the city. He said the best thing he's ever experienced was standing out there on Sunday mornings and greeting you. I'm telling you, there's just something about that, giving of yourself, serving. The happiest people on the planet are those who are doing something that makes a difference in somebody else's life. 1 Peter 4:10, God has given each of you a gift from his great variety of spiritual gifts. Use them well to serve one another. And we have plenty of opportunities to serve here at Family Church. We call them our dream teams. All of our dream teams, we have our first impressions, and Lori does an amazing job leading what is probably our largest dream team. All the folks who are strategically placed out there to greet you every Sunday morning, and that's you. You know, in some ways it's not a lot, but in some ways it is. In some ways that's the most important thing. Here's why. Statistics tell us that most people make up their mind if they're going to come back to a church for a second visit before they ever walk into the building. In other words, when they pull up, before they ever walk into this auditorium, they have made up their mind if they're going to come back a second time or not. That's why we do our best to make sure people are welcomed. We want at least 5 touches. We want them to encounter at least 5 smiling faces and a hug or a handshake or something before they ever walk in here. And it's working. And here's how I know that. If you've ever read any of our reviews, you'll see that over 90% of them, people talk about how welcoming and friendly we are as a church. So let's give it up for the First Impressions team for all the hard work that they do. All the hard work that they do. Event planning, outreach, and ministry, Lou, along with all those that help her, Amber, Debbie, Angie, and whoever else, every occasionally jumps in with them. That's the group that helps us one another, our community, through distributing gift baskets and cards of appreciation, and they do an amazing job as well. Our AVL and worship, by the way, just FYI, Zach has passed the AVL mantle, the audiovisual and lighting. He has passed that to Dan Bowden. So now, anytime there's a tech glitch, you know who to heckle. Heckle Dan, not Zach, because Dan is in charge of that now. But seriously, Dan's been helping Zach almost from day one when him and Corey and the kids first started coming here. But through this time of transition, as we're going to be launching in Baldwin, and I'll get to that in a second, Zach has handed that mantle to Dan, and so he is kind of head of the AVL and worship team. And they do a tremendous job as well. Let's give it. And I know our EFAM, I know those of you who watch online, I know that you appreciate them because you reap the benefits of that watching each week. Our safety team, I want to give a shout out to Kurt Nice, Vince, Clayton, all those that work with him on our safety team, which is sadly something that's a part of church life today, isn't it? It's part of those evil days that Paul talked about. But I am thankful that we have a safety team in place and thankful for their willingness to serve in that capacity. We have our design team leader, Lisa Wilhite, and those that work with her. And I never cease to be amazed at how she just kills it every time, whether it's at the movies, whether it's Mother's Day, or these special things. Lisa and that crew, the ladies that work with her, they just do an amazing job of capitalizing on those special days to make people's worship experience so much more engaging and fulfilling. Lisa and April also tag team a Bible study as well, so they kind of double dip on their serving. There's also children's ministry volunteers, our family kids, which is probably maybe our second largest maybe getting close to being our largest dream team. Natalie, Jessica, and all those who work with them in our children's ministry, they do an amazing job in helping us reach the next generation for Christ. And this is huge. This is huge. Here's why. Statistics tell us that 63% of individuals become a Christian between the ages of 4 and 14. 34% of individuals become a Christian between the ages of 15 and 29. In other words, now watch this. 97% of people who come to Christ do so before the age of 30. Think about that. 97. 97 out of 100 people who come to Jesus, if they're going to do it, they're going to do it before they're 30 years old. That's why it's so important that we put together an engaging children's program with our family kids. And so I'm thankful. Let's give it up for Natalie and Jessica and all those, because that's no easy thing. That's no easy thing. And I'm telling you, they don't just pop into VeggieTales. No. I mean, they might do that, but it's what they'll do a lesson. They teach your children about God and how to worship God. Then we have our building and grounds crew, our dream team. Monty works with a lot of other people just for housekeeping, basic housekeeping, maintenance, and those kind of things. And then in addition to those various ministries that are geared towards Sunday mornings, we also have a few other ministries happening throughout the week. We have our Helping Hands food pantry. Colleen and Ronnie, they oversee that, and we have food distributions at least 3 times a month, if not more. Celebrate Recovery, talked about the Celebrate Recovery last week a little bit. Mike and Connie, they meet on Thursdays, and then Grief Share, Debbie and Mandy oversee that, and they meet on Mondays. So Family Church is in a Kairos opportunity right now. We are experiencing something very special in this moment of time, something that I know generations have prayed for, something that I know Sue and I have prayed for years, and we're in it. We are a miracle in motion right now. Think about this. Consider these stats. 4 years ago, our Easter attendance was in the 80s. 3 years ago was COVID. 2 years ago, we had 285 and 3 services. Last year, we had 465. 465. I'm believing God for over 500 people next Sunday. Yeah, give it up for Jesus. Yeah. I'm not, you say, you're just about numbers. You bet we're about numbers, because each of those numbers represents a soul. A soul. Our Sunday morning attendance has more than quadrupled in the past 3 years. In fact, we're seeing kind of a second wave. I believe we're seeing kind of a second wave of revival right now. Since the first of the year, think about this, since the first of the year, January, we've had over 100 brand new, first time, never set foot in this church before visitors. Since in Wellville, 1,800 people. Last Sunday, we had 17 first-time visitors. Folks, that's 1% of our town. That's 1% of Wellsville. 1%. Not on Easter, not on Mother's Day, not on Father's Day, not on some special, just on a Sunday. A Sunday in March, right? How does that happen? It happens because we're in a Kairos moment. A Kairos moment. And because of the favor of God and your generosity, we've been able to put together an inspiring and engaging Sunday morning worship service that unchurched people and de-churched people would like to attend. Because to reach those no one's reaching, you got to do what no one else is doing. To reach those who no one else is reaching, you've got to do what no one else is doing, which is great, and we are reaching them. But more people means less space, right? And we are painfully aware of this. We have been and are looking at some different options. One of those options is trying to utilize the lot over here to the south of the building. And we hired an architect, had some drawings done up, and we have hit pause on that for right now. And here's why. Even though it could be doable for us, one of the major hurdles is still parking. Parking's still going to be a challenge, and we just want to be good stewards of the resources God's given us, and we're just trying to weigh all of these things and wonder if it would be a good investment, recognizing that we still have the parking issue. So we are checking into the acquisition of some land and building as well. I just want you to know that. That's why it's so very important that everyone take ownership of this opportunity to reach the next generation for Jesus, because we're only here for a short time. And according to the Bible, that short time lasts about as long as a mist, like a vapor. It's 1 second it's here, and then it's gone. That's why we're on a mission to launch a multi-site campus church in Baldwin sometime next fall, the Lord willing. And by multi-site, let me be clear there. By multi-site, we're talking about a duplication of what we're doing here in Wellsville, but in another location. And I want you to consider these statistics about multi-site campuses. In the last 5 years, 80% of salvations came through new multi-site church plants. That just blows me away, people. 8 out of 10 people who have come to Jesus in the last 10 years did so at a new church multi-site plant. Wow. New church plants grow 3 times faster than established churches, and parent churches that plant new churches grow on the average of 21% within 3 years after planting a new church. Wow. Nearly half, 47% of multi-site church campuses are in a small town or rural area. So, I'm going to give you 5 benefits that come from a multi-site. In addition to these statistics, let me give you 5 benefits that come from a multi-site campus in a rural area. Number 1, multi-site campus creates increased growth potential. 85% of multi-site churches report growth since launching a new campus. The average growth for these congregations is about 28% in the first year. And I'm telling you right now, I don't know if I'm prophesying it, we're going to blow that out of the water. Yeah. I mean, Baldwin is ripe for the harvest right now. So, how does that growth take place? How does that growth take? It takes place because of benefit number 2. Multi-site creates a wider reach. More campuses means a larger geographic footprint, more worship space, and more chances for new guests to visit a church building. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see that we need more space. We need more space. A multi-site would allow us to expand our ability to reach all ages. Benefit number 3, multi-site allows us to cast a larger vision. Multi-site allows a church to cast its vision, culture, and DNA into a smaller community. In other words, it allows us to take what is happening here and transplant it into another community. I mean, wouldn't you want someone else to experience what you get to experience here on Sundays? Yes. Why wouldn't you want someone else to experience that, right? Benefit number 4, multi-site provides shared resources. An advantage to multi-site campuses connected together is the ability to share and grow resources together. Now, that doesn't mean just financial resources. It's talking about talent, technology, and knowledge as well. Each location is able to support each other with a larger shared pool of assets. And then benefit number 5 of a multi-site campus, multi-site creates more active volunteers. This is interesting. 88% of multi-site churches see an increase in volunteerism and lay participation after expanding to multiple locations. In other words, this opens up doors for more people to use their gifts and further expand God's kingdom. Say, okay, all right, Pastor, I get it, but Baldwin's so close to Wellsville. Can't those people just drive to Wellsville if they want to go to church? Well, yeah, in fact, they are. The people, look, this isn't for the people that live in Baldwin that come here. We know they're going to come. This isn't for them. This is for their neighbors. This is for those people who won't drive to Wellsville, right? Well, I don't know. I just can't. To say that kind of argument is the same thing as saying, well, can't Baldwin people? Can't they just drive over here to Casey's to get their brownie and gas? Can't they just drive over here to Dollar General to do their shopping? Right? See, that's a flawed mentality to think of it that way. Yes, we do have people from Baldwin who drive here, but we are not strategically, intentionally trying to reach Baldwin at this time. Statistically, the most successful multi-site campuses are typically within 15 to 20 miles of the launching church, the parent church. Again, doesn't Baldwin already have churches? Yes, they do. And I'm sure some of them are good churches. But here's the deal. There are different ways to do church. And again, let me go back to that. To reach those no one else is reaching, you've got to do what no one else is doing. And we know that there are people in Baldwin right now who aren't being reached. They're not being reached. We also know that there are no churches in Baldwin doing what we're doing here. Right? So, what are we doing here? We're creating a life-giving environment. An environment that it welcomes you, right? An environment that lets people know that God's for them, not against them. An environment that we hope will be the easiest place for people to experience the love and forgiveness of Jesus Christ. Now, there's still a lot of moving pieces to this process, which is why we'll be having launch team meetings over the next few months to talk strategy for this launch, and those meetings will be in Baldwin, by the way. And the next one, if you want to write this down, the next launch team meeting is Sunday, April 16th at 6 p.m. at the golf course clubhouse. And if you want to be a part of those meetings, you're not committing to anything, you just want to show up, just kind of informational thing. That's fine, you can do that. And if you want to be in the loop regarding the Baldwin launch, then you can text Baldwin to this phone number, and then that'll get you in the loop about anything that come up in terms of any launch team meetings going forward. Now, there's still a lot we don't know, a lot of moving pieces we're navigating, but here's what we do know. We know that the campus pastors of the Family Church in Baldwin, we know that they're going to be a sharp, good-looking couple. She sings like an angel. They have two of the cutest kids that you've ever seen. The husband's a strategic thinker and an attention to detail doer, and he happens to share the same last name with me because it's our son, Zach, and daughter-in-law, Sam, who are going to be the campus pastors. So let's give it up for Zach and Sam. We know that Danny and Ronnie Peacock are heading up the Baldwin launch team, so let's give them a hand for being willing to head up the Baldwin launch team. And here's what else we know. We know that thus far we're not only on the right track, but even ahead of the curve in this process. This week before last, our district office put together a multi-site campus summit. It was kind of a prototype. It was kind of a Reader's Digest version of something that this ministry goes around the nation, Church Multiplication Network. But this was kind of a prototype, and so it just so happened that they were going to do this in Wichita in our district, and invited them, wanted to know if we wanted to come. Do we want to come? Absolutely we want to come, because we're in the process. So they invited churches who either had gone to multi-site or were thinking about going to multi-site. So Sue and I and Danny and Ronnie and Michael and Cassidy Smart and Sheena Stout and Zach and Sam, we all went down to Wichita and spent about the equivalent of a day, Thursday afternoon, and then Friday till middle of the afternoon. And it was very, very informative, very helpful. After last Sunday's service, Lori Kaufman was at the Next Steps desk, and she asked me, she said, so how was the conference? Sheena, who had gone to the conference, was standing next to her. And I said, well, before I answer, I want to hear what Sheena has to say. I want to hear what someone who's not a pastor has to say. And I thought it was interesting because she said the two big takeaways. Number one is, we're on the right track, and we're further along. And also, this is going to be hard. This is going to be hard. I mean, it's going to be worth it, but it is going to be hard. It's going to require sacrifice. There's going to be cost. As far as the dollar amount, I'm just telling you up front, it's probably going to be about $100K, which if you do the research is very low for a church launch. As far as what this covers, we don't have that itemized list yet, but it's going to include things like the rental, because we're not going to, obviously we can't afford a place to buy, so we're going to be renting some space. We're going to put up a coffee bar, the equipment, sound equipment, all the stuff that we do here. Again, we want to duplicate it over there. All the things that we need to do for family, kids, worship, and all that other stuff. So I will tell you this, though. We will not be doing a capital campaign, but our hope is that as you catch the vision, and hopefully Kyle and I can cast the vision in a clear and compelling way, as you catch the vision, that you'll be prompted to give and sow into this church plant. But beyond that, we believe that an important part of our worship of God is through our giving, through tithes and offerings. And here's the bottom line: if everyone was just willing to do what God asked of you, if everyone just did the minimum, 10%, that's what He asked. If everyone did that, we'd be golden. We'd be fine. We'd be able to do that. And one of the sacrifices we're asking you to pray about is for some of our Wellsville folks to be a part of the launch team in Baldwin for anywhere from 3 to 6 months, and we'll talk more about that going forward. So we want you to pray about maybe being involved in that. But we're asking for 100% participation in prayer. Be praying about this. So I want to conclude by circling back around to your individual vision, because we're in this Kairos moment, this window of opportunity together, and we need to, in the words of the Apostle Paul, make the most of this opportunity in these evil days. So I want to leave you with 3 questions. Number 1, are you taking the mission and vision of Family Church personally? Are you taking it personally? 2, are you the easiest place for your family and neighbors and friends to experience the love and forgiveness of Jesus? And number 3, are you taking your next step on your faith journey? There's a story in the Old Testament about a couple of blind guys who started following Jesus around one time, and they were yelling at him, begging Jesus to heal him. Matthew tells us about it in Matthew 9, verse 27. As Jesus went out from there, two blind men followed him, calling out, "Have mercy on us, son of David." And the son of David, that was just, basically, they were recognizing him as the Messiah. So basically, they were saying, "Save us," or "Heal us, Messiah." They were calling him Messiah. Verse 28, when he, Jesus, had gone indoors, the blind men came to him, and Jesus asked them, "Do you believe I'm able to do this?" "Yes, Lord," they replied. Past 2 weeks, we've been in a series titled The Counselor, where we've been looking at some compelling questions that Jesus asked. Since this is Vision Sunday and this morning's message isn't really directly tied into our series, I wanted to go ahead and conclude the Vision Sunday message with another compelling question that Jesus asked, because I believe it's appropriate for where God is leading us as Family Church. And here's the question: do you believe I can do this? Do you believe I can do this? Won't be easy, but yes, if God's called us to Baldwin, then he'll provide and lead us through this. We don't have all the answers. We may not feel equipped. And yes, it's going to require some sacrifice as we move out of our comfort zone, because some of you are going to have to move out of your comfort zone. But in the end, more people will have an opportunity to know Jesus. And that's what this is all about. God's going to go before us. He's given us the land, but, we got to go in and take it. We got to go in and take it. We have to step into it. And it's a step of faith, which brings us back to the question, do you believe I can do this? And my answer is a resounding yes. I believe you can do this, Lord. I believe you can do this because I've seen what you've done over here in this church over the last 3 years. And it's just miracle after miracle after miracle. This Kairos moment that we're living in. So yes, the answer is a resounding yes. So what I'm asking you to do today is join me on this vision. Take a step into the promises that I believe God has for this church, to be the church that's going to continue to grow and expand in order to reach as many people as we can with the gospel of Jesus. Because the fact is, if we have no vision, we have no future.